Welcome, everybody, to another
Hey.
edition of the show. Super glad to have you back with us. We always appreciate the fact that you are here, tuned into the His and Her Money Show, and we do not take it for granted. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We are excited about today's show because our motto here is we're here to help you take dominion over your money and your life.
Right.
We talk about money for sure, but we also talk about life. There are some aspects of your everyday life. If you don't have that together, then that money thing ain't really going to matter, is it?
That's right.
So we are excited about today's episode because we have a very special guest by the name of Sarah Bragg, and she's here to talk about motherhood and how motherhood taught her how to raise herself. That's deep, right? That's a deep concept.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
And we're going to unpack that for you because we want you to be whole. We want you to be well. We want you to enjoy the journey to dominion. So let's get Sarah on so we can hear her great advice on the matter. Hey, Sarah. Welcome to the His and Her Money Show.
Hey, you guys. I'm so happy to be here with you.
We're glad to have you here, man. You have written quite an interesting book here. And we're excited because we have quite a few mothers that tune into the His and Her Money Show.
I'm sure a father can learn a thing or two.
Oh, that's
parenting,
absolutely.
You know,
that's what I was going to say next.
Teaching us every day.
Absolutely.
Skills, you know,
absolutely. And so we are excited that we get to unpack the lessons that you've learned over the years and the lessons that you've dropped into this fantastic new book of yours. But some people are being introduced to you for the very first time right here and right now. So for them, can you say hello and let them know what you are all about?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I've been a podcaster, much like you guys, for a long time. My show is called Surviving Sarah. I started that ages ago, which ironically, I guess is sort of still the premise of the book. It's surviving myself. Like, how can I'd have people on the show like, I'm struggling with this. Who can I talk to help me with that? And just kind of, talk about life and relationships and work. And we talk a lot. Had episodes about money there too, because man, if we're not, I love that you guys have this podcast because we all need the help with that for sure. So I've been podcasting for a long time and just a writer and an editor. So I live with words, whether I like to speak them or write them. And then my family, we live in Tennessee. I've got 2 girls. We're in the middle school stage. So it's a lot right now. We have a lot of emotions and a lot of words that are constantly coming out of mouths. And my husband, we've been married 16 years and we are now like accidental farmers. Like we left the city of Atlanta in 2020 and moved out to the country and we have horses now and just kind of living that farm life now.
Love that. Love that. Well, in your new book, you talk about how motherhood is a relationship, not a calling. You got to unpack that for us because I remember, and maybe you're referring to something different. I remember when I gave birth to our first child and I remember when they put them in my arms, it was almost like my purpose came alive even more. It was like, this is what I was born to do. But in your book, you talk about how motherhood is not a calling, it's a relationship. So unpack that for so many people listening.
Yeah. It was one of those things that I just wrestled with so much. And I kept hearing that from, blogs I would read or from different people. And I felt like you when I was handed my daughter, I couldn't imagine doing anything else but being with her. It just, when you don't even know what you're doing. So then to go, okay, well, I'm going to figure this out maybe part-time. I don't know. It just felt so like, how do you do that? And so it just felt this elevated pressure, like, gosh, everything about her depends on me is what I really kind of felt like. And so those blogs I would read, it just felt like pressure. But at the same time, I loved what I did as far as work goes. And I needed to work. There was that whole little element of, we got to pay our bills, right? Which you guys are all about this podcast, right? So you understand that. And there was this tension I felt. And I started really realizing the privilege that it was of calling motherhood a calling because everybody loves their job of motherhood in the sense of, I love this kid. I want the best for this kid. I want to impart all the things I can. I want to provide for this kid. But there was all that conversation was around calling was about basically vocation. It was like, motherhood is a calling, so you should sacrifice everything else in order to be a mom. Let everything else go in order to be a mom. But like I said a minute ago, there's a privilege to that. Not all of us can let all the other things go in order to focus on being a mom. And so I just really wrestled with that because it felt like I was having to give that up. Or I thought about my friends who couldn't have children. And does that mean that they're less of a woman, that they have less of a calling in life if they can't be a mother? That motherhood is somehow the most important calling that we as women could have. And the more I thought about it, the more I wrestled with it. It just felt like we're saying it's a calling because we want to make sure we feel validated in what we're doing. And for some people, like you said, I have purpose from being a mom. I think about the purpose that I've always felt like I've been doing since I was in my 20s. Sometimes the platform changes. The purpose doesn't, but the platform changes. I'm still, teaching and encouraging women that I've been doing since 20s. It's just that right now my women are 11 and 13, right? And so that platform has changed, but that purpose has kind of remained the same. And so I just wanted to help alleviate some of that pressure that we have been put on us by other people that, oh gosh, this is the most valuable thing you could ever do with your life. Because at some point, some women don't get that. And at some point, it just doesn't feel right. And at some point, those kids are going to grow up and walk away. So then what? What is left with my calling, so to speak? And so I felt like viewing it as a relationship really highlights what it actually is. I value my relationship with my husband. I don't feel called to marry him. I felt like I chose to marry him. And I love him and I value that relationship. And so the same with my girls. When I stopped viewing it as this is the ultimate thing that I could be doing, I just valued the relationship. And that took a lot of pressure off of me.
And so for that person listening who is resonating with what you're saying, maybe they, hearing that for the first time, and it's kind of like an aha moment for them. How do they then walk that out if the programming has been there for so long where they have felt like this was the ultimate thing for them? And maybe they did forsake some past dreams, goals, and ambitions for the sake of motherhood. How do they, now that they've heard you say that, kind of walk in that to get to that place that you're at right now?
Yeah, I would start remembering who you were before you had kids. Remembering the whole person that you were, the things that you loved to do, the things that brought you joy, the things that just gave you a sense of life and purpose and fulfillment outside of that relationship with your children, and begin to implement those things back into your life. I stopped writing for a long season after having my oldest. And it wasn't until my second one came around that I started writing again, even for no one necessarily to read. Journaling, I went back to journaling, and then I eventually started sharing those words. And so it just was going, gosh, who was I before I had kids? And so I think that's one of the things, is to remember your whole self. Who have you been before kids, and who do you want to be after kids? And spending time developing that person. And then I think some of it is just that awareness piece. Once you can do differently, and alleviating some of that pressure, or maybe even, I know it's easy to judge other people. I think that's something that changes in us once we know differently, that we don't judge another woman for a choice that she made, whether, the woman chose to stay home and not work anymore with her kids, or she chose to go back to work full time with her kids. I think when we alleviate that pressure that we're putting on motherhood as a calling, it helps us to be less judgmental towards each other and go, whatever's best for you. If it is best for you to do this as a mom, then that is great, even if it's not best for me. And so I think that's a big heart piece, along with the action step of remembering who you were before children.
You also talk about the self-imposed pressures, let alone the pressures from the world and TV and social media, of being this perfect mom. Nobody's perfect. Nobody except God. But you talk about the self-imposed pressures that you too felt of having to be this perfect mom. But you were sort of awakened through your journey of this with your daughters, your journey of walking this out with your daughters. Talk about that, because so many mothers struggle with that. I have to be perfect. Like, they beat themselves up if they get loud at their kids. Maybe they were too hard on their children and the kids cried, or whatever the case may be. Maybe they were having a bad day. But talk about that perfection with motherhood.
I think I thought that the best model for my children was to see me being so perfect that I've got it all together and I've figured out how to do everything and I'm not messing up. And, they can just, oh, look, perfect example, watch it out. But what I realized is what they needed was a mom who was just human, a mom who struggled the same way, a mom who sometimes was sad, was sometimes angry, but that sometimes happy, that felt emotions, that sometimes failed things, and to figure out how to rise up and move forward from failure. That is what my children actually needed to see to figure out how to do this, because the truth is they're not perfect either, and they're going to walk through life and they're going to face hard things, and they're going to have to figure out how to be resilient and how to handle failure and how to be sad and know that that's okay to be sad or mad and all the negative emotions that sometimes we want to be perfect and not feel. And so when I realized that I just need to be a better human, I just need to model what it's like to be a human in front of them. There was pressure. The pressure fell off of me in that way too, because again, I still like to do things. Just my makeup is like, I want to do it right the first time. That's my wiring. But I have come so far in allowing myself to not be so perfect, and that they can see that I don't have it all together sometimes, and that I fail at things or even doing hard things. I remember writing the book. It was in the smack dab in the lockdown of 2020, and I had to write this book, and it was hard. And I remember my youngest looking at me, she's like, gosh, if it's so hard, why are you doing it? And I'm like, because I can do hard things, and you can do hard things. You can, just because it's hard doesn't mean you don't do something. And to me, again, that tied into perfection, because if I was operating in a perfect way, then maybe it wouldn't be hard. It'd be easy. But the truth is that's just not how life works. And so all of that modeling just how to be a human, which includes a lot of hardship and a lot of failure and a lot of figuring things out, that helped me let go of some of that perfectionism that I still feel like I'm a recovering perfectionist. So I still am working on that daily basis, it feels like.
And so I guess along those same lines with perfectionism is the super mom walking around with the cape. And I think the pressure gets magnified by the advent of social media. So you see other people with picture perfect kids and family life, and they're moving upward in their career, and they're taking vacations, and they have a 6-figure business, and they are working hard at church. They're taking all these snapshots, putting it on social media, and quite naturally you start to compare.
In the community, and kids are in all these activities, and
it's kind of almost second nature to wear that cape of supermom, and I'm sure that it's not a healthy thing long term. So was that something that you dealt with at all in your journey? And if it was, what did you do to counteract it and find a more healthy place to sit?
Yeah. I mean, it's so easy to get caught up in that. I mean, and in fact, there were times in my motherhood career that I would forget to even take the picture, let alone post it on social media. And they're like, oh gosh, we were at the, kindergarten graduation. And I was just like watching her graduate. I didn't think about taking the family shot and making sure we had all this and then post it. And so there were so many times where I was like, gosh, I'm like failing at this mom thing because I'm not even remember to take the picture. So I do think there's this pressure to be all the things that if you're gonna, you got to be room mom, and you've got to, even if you're working full time, somehow you've got to make every field trip, or you've got to create something super Pinterest worthy of your kids' birthdays, or there's just all this pressure that somehow we got to create all these experiences for our children that are Instagram worthy. And the thing that kept coming to me as I was wrestling with that and kind of pushing at that for myself, kind of two things. One was I would think about the things, if I heard myself say should or supposed to, well, I should do that. A good mom, she's supposed to show up for this event, get off work, show up for the thing, or, should do this, shouldn't do that, supposed to. I really started paying attention when I was saying those words. And then just questioning it. Sometimes, I needed to show up for that thing. Okay. But then there's some things that I was just doing simply because I felt like that's what a good mom or a super mom was supposed to do. So I started paying attention when I said that, and then just kind of getting curious about it and questioning it. But the other thing I started to realize was that at the end of the day, showing up is enough. That, whatever is, left undone or didn't get done, whatever it may be, my presence and showing up is what is really winning with our children. Is choosing after a hard day to show back up in that relationship, right? You have a fight with your kid. It's hard. If you've ever raised a strong-willed kid, you know how hard those relationships can be, how many fights come along. And it's choosing to show back up again. Showing up is enough. And that's what I really started to realize, is that at the end of the day, I may not be a super mom. I may just be like the world's most okayest mom, like third place here, not even first place. But showing up is really enough. My presence. I was at the kindergarten graduation. I may not have taken any photos or posted them online, but my presence was there. And that's a big shift when we can go, okay, like I don't have to be the best, but I can show up, and that's winning.
Yeah. As parents, one of our jobs is to teach our children. We're always teaching our children about something from the time they could literally probably crawl. Don't touch that. That'll harm you or whatnot. So we're always teaching our kids, but our children can also teach us lessons. Can you share a lesson when your girls taught you something?
I mean, man, kids have been the greatest catalyst of growth in me. I feel like they are always teaching me. I think the biggest one that has probably been the biggest influence for me in the last several years has been learning to be kind to myself when I make a mistake. Because like I said earlier, I don't like to make mistakes. I like to figure it out, do it right the first time, carry on. But I kept noticing in my kids this, and one of my kids, in particular, like would mess up and go, "Oh, I'm the worst in the world." And I was like, oh, I don't like that. But one of the reasons why I didn't like it is because I've heard myself say that, right? You mess up, you make a mistake. Somehow I'm the worst. And I remember I was cooking dinner, and I'm not a great chef by any means. If I could have one luxury in life, it would be for someone to cook for me. That's what I want in life. But I remember I burned dinner, and whatever it was burning, and I was so frustrated. I was like, ugh, I'm the worst. And my youngest I think she was like 4 or 5. So she still had that little voice. And from behind me, I heard her say, "It's okay, mommy. Be kind to yourself. We all make mistakes." And that was such a lesson of going, that's right. That's how we have to operate with ourselves. We have to talk to ourselves the way we talk to a friend, that just like she said to me, be kind to yourself. It's okay. We all make mistakes. And so I think that for sure has really changed me over the last few years, that now my first response isn't, I'm the worst. It's, okay, that happened, but let's be kind to yourself. We all make mistakes.
How, in this journey that you've been on, that you're sharing with us, how has your faith played a part? What were some things that you learned as a result of you staying connected to God that helped you become a better parent for your children?
It's interesting how I think I grew up thinking that faith meant certainty, and having children has been the most uncertain thing I have ever done. and I realized that the opposite of faith is not doubt, it's certainty. That actually faith is when you cannot see. You cannot see so you're living by faith. You're operating by faith is when you're in those uncertain times. So the moment that you become very certain, that's the opposite of faith. And so I feel like my faith increased during this time because I learned to lean into the uncertainty. I learned to not be afraid of the uncertainty, and to be grasping out of fear for what felt secure or what felt certain. And I learned to be more curious. And I think having that posture of curiosity has increased my faith exponentially. And especially my posture toward, the greatest commandment, love the Lord your God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. That loving your neighbor as yourself, curiosity is what has really increased that in my life.
In your book, you empower women to do what they want, not what they should. Talk about how this has changed your life as a wife, a mom, a woman.
Yeah. I learned that lesson greatly by having a dog. We kindly refer to him as the greatest regret of 2017. We all do things for our kids, thinking our kids need something. They thought we needed a dog. We didn't need a dog, but we still have this dog. He's loved, rest assured. But I just was like finding myself, I was the only one in the house walking him, and he was, he's near 100 pounds. He's huge. He's just like, he walks me. And then we lived in like a downtown community, so he had to be on a leash. It was this whole ordeal. Well, the whole point of walking is to feel good, right? You release endorphins, you come back happy, you've released your stress. Well, I would walk him, and I would come back. I've cussed out every neighborhood dog that barked at us. I've been angry. I'm so mad. And I was like, this is not working. But I feel like I should walk this dog. Like a good dog mom walks the dog, right? It needs the exercise. Like I should do this. And I remember going, oh, I'm just not going to do that. Like if I feel like I should, I'm doing that because I feel like I should do that a good dog mom does that. Well, I'm just not going to do that anymore. And you know what? I took walks by myself, and I was very happy. And that dog, he's just fine. He's still alive. I just stopped walking him, right? But that's what it, and so it's a funny lesson, that I learned from having a dog. But I just started having to pay attention to all the other things in my life that I was doing, because I thought that I should do that. And I felt like I just was shoulding all the time versus, well, what do I really want to do? Who am I really? You get down to all the things that we do in life, in our relationships, because we feel like we should do them, or, well, I guess I'm supposed to do that. But the truth is, you don't have, this is your one life to live. We're not asking you to be mean. So if you're like, I should do that, but I'm going to be mean instead, let's don't do that. Let's do that should thing if that's the case. But let's pay attention to who you are and the life you want to live, and just kind of figure that out and pay attention to the shoulds and supposed to's, and not let that dictate who you think you're supposed to be, but begin to let out who you really are. And so I used those words basically as a trigger. And anytime I would hear myself say that, it was like, oh, pay attention, be curious. Why are you saying that? Why do you think that a good mom acts this way or is supposed to do this thing? And do you want to do this thing? If you want to do this thing, great. If you don't want to do this thing, it's okay to not do this thing. And so that was a big, I don't know, just release again of those pressures and those expectations and those things that I thought I had to be, in order to be viewed as a certain way. So I guess I have my dog to thank for that lesson, mostly.
Nice. I'm curious, what would be your advice for a spouse to support their spouse that's going on this journey of being raised by their parenthood? Were there some things that you needed from your husband that you got, or that you had to vocalize? Where can the other spouse be supportive?
Yeah, I think the posture of curiosity has done wonders even in our marriage. On different faith journeys, on different parenting journeys, when we have approached each other with curiosity instead of judgment, and going, okay, like, let's be curious about, why are you feeling this way? What are you feeling? What are you working on? And not bringing a judgment to the table, but instead curiosity. I feel like we kind of give ourselves freedom to navigate this together in a way, even if there are times where maybe he didn't understand or I didn't understand, but we stayed there, right? We stayed present with each other and gave each other space to process, space to figure things out, or to work through things. And I think that's what you can do with each other, is approach each other with more curiosity and less judgmental or judgment, and just be there, have that presence, and go, okay, I'm not going anywhere. And my husband and I, we talk a ton. I don't know if other couples do that. We sit down at night and hash out the day and talk it over, or sit in the morning when the kids go off to school. And, sometimes it's licking our wounds from fights from the kids, and all that kind of stuff. But it's just having that time together to process, and then giving each other the space to figure things out on their own, and then as we process it together.
Why have you stopped bubble wrapping your kids around the world. I think as parents, we tend to bubble wrap our children
Oh, yeah.
from the outside
Don't
world,
want nothing to happen.
you know. But why have you stopped doing that?
Because at some point, I want them to be adults who can handle things, right? We want them to be resilient. We want them to know how to face hardship and to rise from it. And the only way we learn how to do those things is to actually face the hard things. One of the stories that I shared in the book was when my daughter went off to middle school in 6th grade, they were giving lockers for the first time. And they, went to the locker and there was, cuss words all in, the locker. And I knew another mom that she's like, we'll just get some wallpaper and we'll just like cover it up. And I was like, I looked at my daughter and I said, listen, you're not so precious that you can't read a cuss word and fall apart. Like this is the world. Like it's okay. Like you're going to figure out how to live within it. You're fine. And I think when we empower our kids that they are strong and they are capable and they can handle whatever is in front of them, I think that goes a long way. But I think we have to take off some of the bubble wrap because and listen, parenting is a scary thing. There's so many things, right? Like I've never had more fear in my life than raising kids. Like that brings it all out. But we have to start taking off the bubble wrap so our kids can know that they are strong and capable and can handle anything without me, because one day they will be without me. God willing, like move out of this house, like give me my space back, right? But we just want them to be capable. And I think the best way for them to learn those things is to take off the bubble wrap. And they're going to bump into some things, but how great for them to bump into those things while they live in your home and they come home and they talk about this hard thing and they you can help problem solve, ask them questions to help them problem solve for themselves. That's a great place to be. And it starts with taking off some of that bubble wrap.
Yeah, so good.
Man, it's been incredible. Before we wrap things up, I really want you to tell people about your new book, what they'll find when they pick it up, and where exactly they can go to get their copy.
Yeah. So A Mother's Guide to Raising Herself. You can buy it anywhere you buy books. So online, in stores, wherever you like to support bookstores. But really the book is based on different phrases. So every chapter is a different phrase that I started raising myself on. So I would look at my girls, and for many of them, I was trying to teach them about that they are loved no matter what, or that they are valuable because they are you, or to be courageous, or to be curious, all these different phrases. And the more I taught them, the more I realized I had to teach myself those same things. And so every chapter is just short. I know for me, I love a short chapter because I check it off a list. I don't like to get sucked into a 30-page chapter and go, oh, I'll never get out. I just want to quick hit. And so I feel like that as a mom, it's written for you and mine, that you can read quickly, pick up a line at school, whatever, hiding in a closet from your kid, whatever it may be. It's written quick and conversational. Because I love to talk podcasting, it's kind of the way it is. There's also an audiobook version, so I read that myself. So there's that, but yeah, you can buy it anywhere that you like to buy books.
Awesome.
So
as we wrap this up, what's the number one thing you want people to walk away from this episode, from after they read your book? You sat down, you worked hard to write this book because you had certain people in mind that you wanted to help. What's the number one thing you want them to walk away with?
I want them to just be free to be who they are. That this journey of motherhood and maybe a little bit of, being in midlife, that was the thing where you go, oh man, what if I get to the end of my life and no one really got to see the real me, including my children? And so a lot of this journey that is found in the book is me finding the real me, like coming back to who I am, being my authentic self, telling the truth of who I am. And so I want that for every single reader to go take a deep breath and go, oh, okay, let me come back to who I am. And I can be free to be me, whatever that looks like. I'm different than you and you're different from me. And that's good. We need everyone to be different, but to just be able to take that breath of fresh air and go, all right, like this is hard, but I can do it because I can do hard things, this parenting gig, and I can be free to be me.
That's right. Absolutely love it. Well, if you guys want to grab a copy of her book, we'll make sure that we have all of the links in the show notes. If you're watching this on YouTube, check the description box. Thank you so much, Sarah, for coming on our show and sharing your amazing book with our audience.
Thank you guys for having me.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Really, really practical advice on this journey, and this parenthood in general.
We all can relate to it. We all can relate to the things that she's sharing. So I love that.
I hope that you all took some good notes, and I hope that you all go out and get Sarah's new book, because it'll help you. It'll bless you.
Yes.
Because like she said, why would you want to get to the end of your life and realize that nobody got to see the real you, not even your kids? That was such a powerful statement.
I know my favorite part was do what you want, not what you should.
Huh?
Hey, I'm taking that one. I'm doing what I want from today forward. Okay.
Well, we hope that you guys enjoyed the show. Always stay connected. If you heard something that's powerful and you feel like your friends should hear this too, share it on social media. Our handle is @HisAndHerMoney. Put it in your IG stories and let people know that this episode is something that needs to be heard. Right. That's all we got for this time, guys. It's been great. Till next time. Peace.
Bye, y'all.